We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
Ladies and gentlemen,
the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society.
Illuminati News.
Here's a currently popular favorite for both American or South American popular dance lovers. Deep in a Dream, and Helen Forrest is the singer.
Of 1917.
Today, experts that rarely occupy the same room, physicists, historians, economists, intelligence professionals, educators, journalists, and policymakers, are gathered here in this room to discuss a subject that was, until very recently, untouchable. So we've made astonishing progress in recent years, but we believe decisive UAP data remains hidden behind a wall of classification at the Air Force, CIA, DOE, and elsewhere.
Yes, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Leo Zagami Show. First of all, thank you for making this book a bestseller. The Vatican's Top Secret Alien Agenda is something that should be in every home in the United States of America and around the world. Of course, we are a small show, so please help us sharing this book on your social networks of choice, and you will not regret it, because it's really happening, guys. And tomorrow I think I'm with Dr. Sala, so it's gonna be tomorrow or the day after. Yes, Monday. And then we have other shows planned, and today we are discussing a topic that is present in the book, Marian Apparitions versus Alien Contact, the phenomena of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And all this after this so-called day of disclosure, fueled with gatekeepers that took place in Washington, D.C., which we will be also covering. So welcome, everybody. Christy, who are the sponsors of today's show?
Daniel Estes and Kay Balan. Thank you, guys. And thank you, everyone who bought the book.
Absolutely. Guys, remember, it's only because of you that we are here. So please help us out. You can do it with GoFundMe. You can do it with Cash App. And we will try to be here every week, if possible.
Us too.
Yes, what's happening with them?
They had a pretty boring week. They had a rough time on the show last time.
Yes, but
I had to repaint his eye because he was looking very Horus. So now his eye is back.
Okay, it looks good though. It looks good though, and
Not as good as you.
and instead the lady.
I'm being very demure today.
Okay.
I'm just staying here and being quiet.
Okay.
Not really.
We are broadcasting on Facebook. We are broadcasting on various channels on YouTube.
You have
What?
you have Velcro.
What? Sorry?
You keep grabbing my stocking and pulling it.
It's not me. It's my yeah.
Stop it.
Okay, so we are here with a show for you that is going to be out of this world. So prepare yourself. We're going to be discussing something that is usually typically ascribed to the, to the Catholic Church, but in reality it touches various branches of Christianity, including the Coptic Church. And in fact, I would like to start this show discussing what happened once upon a time, not so long ago, in 1968, in Egypt. When this phenomenon started, well, they started actually soon after Christ left us, with the first apparition of the Lady of the Pilar, which is the patroness of Spain, in 40 A.D. That was actually, according to tradition, the very first Marian apparition that happened to James the Greater, brother of St. John the Evangelist. So since then, we had, of course, recognized and unrecognized apparitions. Since 2024, May 2024, the church has also changed their own rules regarding how to judge these apparitions. Well, first of all, let's go to Washington, though, because those who have read my book, who are reading my book, and I hope many of you, because it's a very relevant book for a very relevant topic in our times, know that there was this week a sort of day of disclosure filled with the usual gatekeepers. Amongst them, we had Avi Loeb, but we had also Al Puthoff. Once again, Al Puthoff shared very little of this reality, but he admitted that he can't talk. Otherwise, he will get arrested. So imagine that. And he did that during this disclosure forum. Let me show you what happened at this disclosure forum. First of all, with Avi Loeb. We know that Avi Loeb, we discussed him last week, has been nominated heading this scientific committee or whatever for the White House. The guy is, of course, a Sabbatean Frankist agent of Israel, but that's how it is. The White House loves Israel more than America. Is Israel first rather than America first, and that's why we are America first on this channel, guys. We are not Make America Great Again anymore, because if that means getting in league with Trump, being together with Trump, well, that's not the case here. We are for America, not for Trump. And Trump, unfortunately, doesn't want to understand how things have been changing. I guess, actually, some people say the Make America Great movement is not ending. It's actually abandoning Trump. So in that case,
well, that would be great, because we have MAGA in the middle of our name.
Yes.
There's some MAGA up in there. So
Yeah, yes, that's true.
What I was going to do with my identity.
Okay. So let's go to this event that took place in Washington, D.C. And then, of course, we're going to be discussing the subject of the day, starting from what went on in Egypt in 1968, which is rather relevant. So here we go.
To moderate this panel with two such distinguished panelists. And Jordan and the whole Disclosure Foundation, I mean, you guys did a fantastic job of picking panelists that are incredibly timely and relevant, because Professor Loeb over here just 2 weeks ago was named to the government's new UAP Science Advisory Council. And Avi, I understand that you have a brief presentation that you want to give. So why don't you go ahead, get behind the podium. What do you say, about 5 minutes? Can we get through it in 5 minutes? Okay. If you go a little over, that's all right. Okay, take it away, Avi. And then we'll get into the Q&A.
So I'll just say a few general words. So let me start with the executive summary. It's all about evidence. If UAP are real objects, we should be able to figure them out with better data. And that's what we should do. Now, how often does the Director of National Intelligence, the White House, the FBI, the intelligence community ask scientists to help them? Not very often. And they sort of approached me to establish this Science Council for the science of unidentified anomalous phenomena, presumably because they cannot figure out what these objects are. And as of a couple of days ago, we submitted a request for more than 50 items of information that we would like to get from
This is, of course, theater, complete theater. This guy is a gatekeeper. He's working for the system in a way that prepares for their own version of disclosure. I explained this very well in this book, where actually I start describing another figure that is next to him, who I have awarded let's say, the possibility of being the first in my book. I'm talking about Al Puthoff. And Al Puthoff, during this event, this Disclosure Foundation event on Capitol Hill, was rather open about the fact that he can't really say much. And this is what I've said to you until now, also in my recent interviews. Al Puthoff is trying to classify our reality. Al Puthoff is trying to limit our reality. And people like him, who have a higher level of security clearance than the President of the United States, they are really the problem here. They are the problem because they are, of course, embedded with the legacy program and all that reverse engineering. So let me show you exactly what Al Puthoff said, which I found particularly revealing in this charade that went on in Washington, D.C. a couple of days ago.
I could worry about going to jail.
He's worried about going to jail. He's worried about going to jail. Why is he worried about going to jail?
It may not be what people are talking about.
Yes, well, that is, of course, the Avi Loeb, the less American of the Americans. Let me go back to Al Puthoff, though, because it's very important that we listen to this specific passage of Al Puthoff, which is particularly revealing, if not incriminating altogether.
You know, this just isn't going to work. Part of it being that there's no way to deal with it piece by piece. You'd have to announce all of it and handle everything at the same time, and realizing that that was going to be an impossible task. But as time has gone on, and just seeing how thought has changed, and seeing how our technologies have changed and so on, my viewpoints slowly changed, and viewpoints of other people in the panel changed as well.
You say it slowly changed, but was there a moment, was there a specific moment where, or something that happened that made you think, I'm now for disclosure to the American public, to the world?
The specific moment would be being exposed to what the apparent reality was, that there really is something going on that most humans don't know about, and just recognizing that that's wrong.
And how much of that reality have you been able to share publicly?
Very little of it.
And what would happen if you were to share some of that with just us in this room right here?
Well, I could worry about going to jail. I mean, what we need to do is we need to restructure our process, which, thank God for Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo and others.
Yes, all the gatekeepers extraordinaire that make the life of Hal Puthoff so easy. Well, that was an important element which I wanted to start with today, even if it's not directly connected, it is in a way, because you will see that the Blessed Virgin Mary apparitions actually were also an important topic of a book by Ingo Swann, who was one of the main remote viewers of Hal Puthoff. So it's definitely connected. Everything is connected in this so-called disclosure game. Now, Christy, let's go into the Blessed Virgin Mary apparitions. I know that you yourself had something that you described in volume 1 of your confessions. That was a moment that actually I witnessed myself. There was this statue of the Virgin Mary on the corner of this remote locality where we used to reside for a period of time in Italy, in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And suddenly this...
I had a lot of things happen as soon as we arrived in that place that we were living in, Subiaco. And I mean, the first day I was there, you had gone to a meeting and something happened. And then when we were like just getting used to the place and everything, there was this Holy Mary that was outside the window, and you could really see it very clearly from the house. And I really liked the Holy Mary when I was in Italy, and would bring flowers and everything. I got pretty attached to the Holy Mary because I would pray to her for my son, and she gave me a lot of comfort in that time. So I was grateful for that. But anyway, one day I was looking at the Holy Mary one morning, and she wasn't there. And I was just, you know, when you're used to something and then you go and you look and it's not there anymore. And it was kind of like this blessing that I felt like we had, because we had such a hard time in the other place that we lived, and we moved here and we were by ourselves and it was nice and free. And then the Holy Mary disappeared, and he saw it because I called him and I said, Leo, it's gone. And I was crying. I said, I don't know what's wrong. I don't know why they took it. It's gone. And what happened when you saw?
Well, I mean, the statue wasn't there any longer, so I kind of like was a little bit puzzled by the possibility of a rather big statue of the Holy Mary. It wasn't like a little statue; it was something quite big, disappearing out of thin air.
Well, I thought that somebody took it, you know, like they took it out, you know, of that area, and so it was in the morning that happened, and so I had to get dressed. And so I got dressed and I got my dog and we went for a walk, and I walked down there expecting to not see it anymore. And I get to the end of the road and it was there. And my jaw dropped and I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was like one of those things that you can't explain. Yeah. And I had a witness, and it was just like that. And
well, let's go into things that can't be explained. Now, in 1968, in Cairo's working class district of Zaytun, which I had the possibility to visit, thousands of people, Christians, Muslims, and atheists, looked up and saw the same thing. It was a radiant figure of light hovering above a church roof. Initially, they actually thought it was somebody like a woman who wanted to kill herself and throw herself off. But then they realized something different. Police officers took photographs, so we have photographs that we will be showing together with a video to introduce you one of the most relevant and impressive apparitions, which, by the way, happened in a church that is Coptic, is not Catholic. Is the Church of the Virgin Mary of Theotokos. And it was built after the Virgin Mary promised the person who built this church that in the future there will be a miracle in this church. It's one of the oldest, remember the Coptic Church is one of the oldest Christian institutions still in continuous existence. And the Coptic Patriarch verified the genuinity of the event, as did President Nasser, who was the president of Egypt back then. So Zaytun remains one of the most well-documented mass Marian apparitions in modern history. Hundreds of thousands of witnesses, photographic evidence, and an apparition that really never spoke a word, because that is the difference here. When we have these Marian apparitions, they usually relay some messages, like Medjugorje, which recently started to relay more messages, and we're going to be analyzing that too. Now, like I explained in my book, last year there was an event by the Soul Foundation which saw Professor Pasulka discussing the Blessed Virgin Mary apparitions. Now, the Blessed Virgin Mary apparitions and their connections to what is now known as UAPs or UFOs were first discussed by Jacques Vallée at the end of the 1960s in one of his books, and then later on they will be picked up in 1990 in a book by Roberto Pinotti that was actually focusing on the Blessed Virgin Mary apparitions in relation to the UFO phenomenon. Now, the strongest links that are interpretative and folkloric rather than direct were noted by Jacques Vallée initially in Passport to Magonia, that talks about the Guadalupe story, and she shares key traits with about this location, the specific messages and instructions connected to it. So let's go back though to what happened in Egypt, because last year when Professor Pasulka discussed the Blessed Virgin Mary apparitions in relation to the UAP or UFO phenomenon, she started with a discussion on this very apparition that happened in 1968 and went on for a while in Egypt. And I tell you guys, it is an impressive story, which I really want you to listen.
It was 1924, and Khalil Abraham was about to build a hotel in the spot in Zaytun, where the Holy Family was said to have visited more than 1900 years earlier. One night, as he slept, Abraham was visited in a dream by the Virgin Mary. "Build a church in my name," the Virgin demanded, "and a miracle will take place in the future." He did just that. Then, on April 2nd, 1968, the miracle took place. Two Muslim parking garage agents on Taman Bay Street in the Cairo suburb of Zaytun saw a woman perched perilously on the dome of the Church of St. Mary. Thinking she was a young woman trying to kill herself, they shouted for her to come down. Then they realized that this was no ordinary woman. Soon, word spread that the Virgin Mary had returned to the Church of Zaytun, built in an area that Mary had promised to return to after stopping at this spot to rest during the Holy Family's flight to Egypt. Bishop Marcos was among the thousands who saw the apparition of the Virgin Mary. At the time, a member of the Faculty of Engineering at Cairo University, Bishop Marcos describes what he saw in 1968.
Just behind the church, in front of the wall of the church, I think, not more than 40 or 50 meters, approximately at midnight. I have seen the vision, complete, very nice, very clear. I saw the complete face, complete body, and her hands waving to bless the people. And everyone could see that she concentrated her eyes on them exactly.
Soon, thousands of Christians and Muslims alike flocked to the tiny church, including President Nasser, who was stunned by the vision. The apparition changed the politics of Egypt as Nasser developed better relation with Egyptian Christians. And of course, all who saw the apparition were overwhelmed. One who witnessed the apparition was Dr. Otto Meinardus, a member of the German Theological Association and a Harvard-trained theologian who taught at the prestigious American University in Cairo. He marveled at what he saw in the early days of the apparition, bringing many students to witness what he called the most stunning sight he had ever seen.
Well, it occurred during the first days of April that thousands and 10,000s of people, both Muslims and Christians alike, assembled in front of the Church of the Holy Virgin to see the apparition of the Virgin Mary as she appeared there on the dome. The days later, large numbers of people, both Muslims and Christians of the various denominations, assembled there and witnessed the apparition in various forms. I myself saw it numerous times with friends in my parish, with university students, and yes, there's to be no doubt about it.
Dr. Carey Malik was among those who couldn't get enough of the holy apparition. He was among the first to see Her Holiness and returned several times.
I was standing over there near the fence and holding that iron fence as strong as I could because of the pressure of the crowd. And it was about 8:30 in the evening, and I saw a light coming out from the this dome, which is the southwest dome, and the light began to increase gradually, and then suddenly the Holy Mother was standing in front of the dome. She stood there for about 15 minutes, and then she began to walk, and she stood in front of that cross, and she knelt and stood up again, and then she walked to the northern side of the church, just above the area where I was standing, and she looked at the crowd, and she blessed them, and she smiled, and I can say that I saw her teeth when she smiled. I was preparing in my mind about 7 or 8 requests from her when I saw her. One of them was to cure me from asthma, which I had for about 20 years. When I saw the Holy Mother, I found myself trembling and tears coming down my cheek. And I stood there about half an hour, and I went back to call my family who was in the other street. And when I came back, I could not reach the church because of the pressure of the crowd. Till about 11 p.m. I could manage to reach near the fence, but I was not holding anything at that time. And I saw a Muslim clergyman, and he gave me his name as Mujahid, and he told me, "You are trying to look, you don't see well, I will carry you." And he carried me, and when he did that, I saw the most fantastic view I ever saw in my life. I saw the Holy Mother standing. She was about double the size of the human being. She was just, I believe, in front of that dome. And she was dressed in blue and a red robe above the dress, and there was a crown of about 20 centimeters high on her head. The second time I saw her after that, it was a week later. I came a week later, it was Saturday also, and she was, I saw just half view. She was standing behind the dome, and then I saw people pointing at the moon, and I looked at the moon. I saw her face stamped on the whole face of the moon. And that was the last time I saw her in the tomb before I left for the United States.
The appearance of the Virgin Mary brought with it many reports of miracles, some of which were witnessed by Bishop Marcos.
We had a man who was very crippled. His hands were paralyzed and his back was bent, and he could barely speak. At approximately 7 o'clock in the evening, I saw him begin to move his hands and then his fingers, and then the rest of his body. Before long, he threw his canes from his hands and began to run around the church, blessing God, because now he was healed.
Another story of healing is told by witness and author Pearl Zaki.
One girl named Teresa Galila had polio when she was about 6 months old. She could drag her legs with crutches, and she was healed at Zaytun. And I had seen her walking.
There were other miracles seen as well. The late Bishop Gregorios, during a private interview, told of doves the size of angels that would appear and disappear over the church.
Before they disappeared, they dispersed like cotton.
Bishop Gregorios saw many doves at many different times over the church.
Sometimes there were 7, sometimes there were 12, and they were in a formation.
Bishop Gregorios also witnessed several healings at Zaytun, including one Muslim woman who was spectacularly healed after paralysis after visiting the church during the apparition. She visited the bishop to show him how the miracle had affected her life.
With a stick in her hand, she said, "I am bringing this stick with me, not because I need it anymore, but to convince you that I was paralyzed, and I was depending on this stick, and now I don't need it."
Even though the Zaytun apparitions took place 4 decades ago, it is nearly impossible to find anyone in Cairo who didn't see the Virgin Mary themselves, or who knows someone who did. Zaytun is history's most observed apparition of the Holy Mother. It was a long-running holy event that changed the course of Egyptian history. What was the importance of the appearance of Mary? Bishop Gregorios addresses the question.
Saint Mary is preparing the people for the second coming. But before the second coming, there is the crisis and the Antichrist, who creates other problems.
Bishop Marcos has a different, less apocalyptic view of what the appearance of Saint Mary at Zaytun means to mankind.
The vision of Saint Mary is intended for all Egyptians, not just the Christians. She gives them peace. She gives them hope, and the belief that tomorrow will be better than today.
On May 4th, 1968, His Holiness Pope Creolus VI announced the findings of a committee of bishops to 150 members of the press. The visions of Zaytun since April 2nd, 1968 are true, declared the bishops. The Holy Virgin Mary is appearing in her church in Zaytun. His Holiness the current Pope Shenouda III says that the apparition at Zaytun is like no other in history. For example, hundreds of thousands of people have been able to see the Virgin. Plus, the apparition lasted almost 3 years, allowing people to come from all over the world to see this marvel. And Zaytun was accompanied by many miracles, including medical healings, and the presence of pigeon-like objects that flew at night and seemed at times to ascend into the heavens. These and other findings have led author Francis Johnson in his book, When Millions Saw Mary, to call the apparition of Zaytun the most astonishing public manifestations of the supernatural ever to have occurred on Earth.
And I tell you, it is an amazing place. I was actually myself the subject of an exorcism nearby that church from Madame Fula. I talk about it, of course, in my Confessions of an Illuminati series. I went to this church and myself, I really wanted to pray on every corner of it. And it was an experience which I then repeated in other important churches of what is known as the Coptic district, as I was guested by the Butrus Gari family, who are the protectors of the Coptic church in Egypt. So for me, it's very important also to relay the fact that still to this day, the Vatican is trying to get the cops to get closer and closer to them, but they stand firm on their position. They are the oldest Christian reality in the world, and they are the most genuine, let me tell you. When you see their funny hairdos and their setup, that is part of their tradition, of course, which is a completely different tradition. And like I said, very genuine. To my knowledge, probably one of the most genuine Christian traditions I ever witnessed in my life. And I was guested also by the Patriarch of all Russia in Moscow. So, but in Egypt, I must say, it was probably an even more profound experience. However, this phenomena and the connection that there is in relation to to the UFO phenomenon is what we are also discussing today, because yes, it's true, there were some miracles that happened that day, but there was also some victims of radiation, because if they got too close to this light and they observed it for too long, they might have some problems. So yes, there were some benefits, but then of course there were also maybe those who were just too curious for the wrong reasons, and they might have ended up in hospital. They don't have an exact number of how many people ended up in hospital because of it, but definitely there was some who did. Now, Our Lady of Guadalupe, we are here close to Mexico as we speak to you, and in 1531, this is the most prominent and church-approved Marian apparition in the Americas. It was an event that was the focus on Juan Diego, this indigenous convert who reported multiple encounters with this luminous lady on Tepeyac Hill near Mexico City. It was something special. It was something special, and it, of course, left that miraculous image that we still have to this day. Even you can pick it up. That one is actually based on the Lady of Guadalupe. I have actually a painting in my home in Italy, but this typical, no? It's of course with that. And that image that, of course, is typical of the Lady of Guadalupe. Now, in relation to this important phenomenon, Marian apparitions are supernatural appearances of the Virgin Mary. We said they started in the very early stages of the development of Christianity, and they involved usually seers receiving visions, messages, and often they are accompanied by physical signs or crowd witness anomalies. And one of the most amazing crowd witness anomaly was, of course, the one that happened in Fatima, that then led to a series of messages. Now, there is a lot of controversy surrounding the fact that the Vatican held up until the year 2000 the first secret of Fatima, and a lot of people don't believe they really gave us the full mio Dio, the real secret, 100%, because, of course, it involves also the corruption of the church. So let's go and witness a little bit more what the Fatima apparition was about, because it is definitely one of those groundbreaking events that, I guess, changed the course of the Catholic Church forever. Because later on, when Pope Pius XII, who, remember, I talk about in my book, because Pope Pius XII is the guy who participated in getting the retrieved the UFO in 1933 to the United States of America, but also himself was a witness of something that happened, and that also will change his own idea, because he, this is actually a representation of the miracles of the two suns that happened in the Vatican Gardens in the early 1950s. And this happened after, of course, he had acknowledged the importance of Fatima. He had basically himself his own miracle in the Vatican Gardens, similar to what happened in Fatima. So let's go and analyze, thanks to this clip, what really happened in Fatima. The miracle of the sun.
Spring of 1917, in the countryside of Fatima, Portugal, the Blessed Virgin Mary first started appearing to 3 young shepherd kids. Lucia dos Santos, Francisco and Jacinta Mato each day had to take care of a flock of sheep owned by their family. One day, as they were looking after their sheep, they suddenly saw a bright flash of something like lightning, followed quickly by another flash in the clear blue sky. They looked up and they saw a lady clothed in white, brighter than the sun, radiating a light more clear and intense than a crystal cup filled with sparkling water lit by burning sunlight. She said, "Continue to come here every month. In October, I will tell you who I am and what I want, and I will perform a miracle for all to see and believe." Lucia wanted to keep this apparition a secret, but Jacinta, the one who is known to be more talkative, could not keep this secret and told her family when she got home. Now, as the word on the street grew of the Blessed Mary Ever Virgin appearing to the 3 young kids, naturally, not many believed them. But the thing was, every time they got interrogated, the stories matched up perfectly and they seemed to be telling the truth. A great curiosity grew amongst the people, and they were waiting for the day of October the 13th, when Mary said she would perform a miracle. On the eve of the 13th, a huge storm washed over the mountain country of Fatima, but despite this, tens of thousands of people made their way to the cova, where Our Lady said she would perform the miracle. When the 13th day had come, the weather turned bad again, and heavy rain started to fall. Again, Mary appeared to Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta. Lucia asked, "What do you want?" She said, "I want to tell you that a chapel is to be built here in my honor. I am the Lady of the Rosary. Continue always to pray the Rosary every day. The war is going to end, and the soldiers will soon return to their homes." And as Lucia explained, Mary then got very sad and said, "Do not offend the Lord our God anymore, because he is already so much offended." Then, opening her hands, she made them reflect on the sun, and as she ascended, the reflection of her own light continued to be projected on the sun itself. After she disappeared, the people then witnessed the great miracle which had been predicted. The miracle which is known today as the miracle of the sun. the dark rain clouds broke and the sun appeared as a spinning disc in the sky. It was said to be significantly duller than normal and to cast multicolored lights across the landscape, the people, and the surrounding clouds. The sun was then reported to have sped towards the earth before zigzagging back to its normal position. Witnesses reported that their previously wet clothes became suddenly and completely dry, as well as the wet and muddy ground that had been previously soaked because of the rain that had been falling. One of the eyewitnesses, Dominic Reis, later said they looked as though they had just come back from the cleaners. The miracle is reported to have been seen from as far as 15 to 25 miles away, thus ruling out the possibility of any type of collective hallucination or mass hypnotism. Doubters and skeptics of the kids' apparitions and of Catholicism had now become believers.
Well, that was, of course, Fatima, one of the most important apparitions. And we have also Lourdes, and we have, of course, then the controversies that surround some of these apparitions. That's why the Vatican has imposed a new guideline, which I explain in my new book. But there is also much more. Medjugorje. Medjugorje is another important alleged apparition that led then to a series of apparitions and messages that go on to this day, because often these events are in tune with these apocalyptic messages that are usually relate to children or younger people for some strange reasons. So we have, like I said earlier, Ingo Swann. Ingo Swann wasn't, a Catholic. He was actually a Scientologist in the 70s, but he was also a remote viewer for Hal Puthoff, who had worked for his remote viewing projects that eventually will become the Stargate project. Ingo Swann, at one point in 1996, after the end of the Stargate project, published a book. This book was called The Great Apparitions of Mary, an examination of 22 supranormal appearances. And his work as a remote viewer and consciousness researcher examines the whole thing without that, let's say, theological imprint, which at times can be biased. So we have a perspective that is rather unique, especially from somebody who then entered in contact with this non-human intelligence during the remote viewing programs. Now, his perspective naturally extends to the UFO phenomenon, viewing both this reality as a genuine reality of a religious nature, but also something that is, of course, generally also paranormal. And I think that his book definitely contributes to this, to the study of this topic, because he examined 22 documented Marian apparitions, starting with Guadalupe in 1531 and then moving to others. Swann treats the events as genuine phenomena involving the expanded human perception, the higher dimensions of consciousness, and interactions that, modern concepts like holography can help illuminate us, images that appear three-dimensional and visible, yet challenge ordinary physical presence. Now, there is, for example, Professor Pazuk, who took this subject to the Soul Foundation last year, and I asked in my interview to Roberto Pinotti about it, because Roberto Pinotti was also somebody who was there talking about Mussolini's UFO, but he had, of course, in 1990 published himself a groundbreaking book on the Blessed Virgin Mary apparitions. Now, I have, of course, published in its entirety the interview, but today I want to give you another glimpse in the interview of Roberto Pinotti. Here we have the interview. Like I said, The entirety of the interview is only available if you purchase the book, The Vatican's Top Secret Alien Agenda. But here, another glimpse into the work of one of the most respected ufologists in the world.
Pastors, only a handful of pastors are invited to come to a private meeting with a group of men who are connected with the intelligence world that are believers, but are still have very high security clearance. These are legit, true men of God that are still connected to Washington and even this current administration and all branches of military. And they literally told us, we had a sitting congressman, a very well-known congressman from Missouri. People can figure out who it is. He's all over the news. He co-chairs the committee on disclosure. He called into that meeting as well. That was just for pastors. And this is what he said. On speakerphone, this sitting powerful member of Congress said, "Are the pastors listening to me?" I'm getting chills right now because this happened to me. He said, "Are the pastors in the room listening to me?" And I said, "Yes, sir, we are here." And he said, "Listen to me. Go and tell the church they are not ready for what is coming. The narrative that is coming, what they are going to say is going to be like nothing you can even imagine. They are preparing to tell us that they are from another dimension, that they are our creator, and that these beings, these aliens, or whatever you want to call them, they were the ones that seeded us here. There is no such thing as God. Jesus was invented by them. The Bible was invented by them." And begin to just say, listen, prepare the people for what is coming because they're not ready. When I heard that, I was just overwhelmed, just about started crying because I knew that that was confirmation for me of why God had put me on this assignment. So I'm just telling you, I don't want you to be afraid. God's not giving us a spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. And here's how awesome God is. Jesus could have just answered that question to his disciples. Earthquakes are coming. Wars are coming. It's just going to be chaos in the world, and man's heart's
very dramatic, very apocalyptic, of course, typical of certain evangelical context, which, of course, I don't want to criticize because I have a lot of people.
It's their position, no problem.
I mean, but the problem here is that later on, when the name of the actual politician came out, then the guy had to retract everything, and it was rather embarrassing.
So obviously,
what was he reading too much?
Maybe.
What do you think of his assertions? I mean, here we have somebody who was told, apparently, then before he retracted, that was his statement, that a politician, now this politician said all these things, the Bible was created by Jesus. I mean, it's pretty strong statements for any Christian, regardless of the denomination.
So, frankly, I think that it's not the case to give too much space to such things, because what is important is to maintain people in their more suitable conditions. You understand? Absolutely.
So,
otherwise, it will be a chaos.
So here so you believe, though, that because, here it came out after Newsweek. I mean, Newsweek is not like, a conspiracy outlet. It's a very serious publication, and they gave space to this whole controversy because Eric Barlinson was apparently the guy who then had to accept the apology.
I know.
So, it seems, though, that, and I noticed from the way he retracted what he previously said, that he was genuinely scared.
Yeah,
and before starting this interview, we saw his retraction, his disclaimer, and he looked visibly shaken. So, if they were not what this guy claimed they were, or if they were simply positive aliens, extraterrestrial that want to embrace humanity, there will not be such fear. Why there is such fear, Roberto? Because Luis Elizondo...
Probably we are aware, everybody of us, that the principle of good and evil are cosmic, are general. So we may have to face both sides of the medal. You understand?
Okay. Thank you for that answer. And Mussolini, in 2023, this whole thing came up, the Mussolini UFO case. And of course, if you want to know more about this interview in its entirety, like I said, you can find it on my new book. We are simply extracting here a few interesting elements from it. This is once again another of these elements. We're seeing the face of the earth.
It had to do with the Tesla technology. Absolutely, yes. Yeah. So Mussolini was not given this invention. You understand?
So this is about, of course, the technology that allegedly was reverse engineered, and that the Pope then stopped basically the head of Mussolini's scientific cabinet from giving this technology also to Adolf Hitler. Otherwise, probably the course of the war would have been forever changed.
And today are no longer incredible.
Now, this event... tell us a little bit about the Soul Foundation, which between us seems to be an organization that is working for the government, maybe, or is that simply my perception?
No.
For the U.S. government, I mean, it seems like something they have.
You see, the Soul Foundation, consider that soul is the Latin term. The sun.
Yes.
In other words, this is a sort of light over the situation. And the Soul Foundation did a good job and is doing a good job. But consider that for many in the United States is something new and not compromised with the government or something else, you understand? So it's simple for...
Who is the guy behind it?
Well, at present, Professor Skafish probably is one of the most important members of Soul Foundation. But there is also Gary Nolan, for instance.
Now, people like Gary Nolan or Pasulka seem to have been privy to military information on these objects, on these crafts. They seem to act like gatekeepers, just like David Grush. I'm not necessarily saying that being a gatekeeper in this case is with a negative connotation. It's simply the way it is, because...
but it may be useful after all. After all, in this Congress, I was asked to have a role, the role of the guest star, because I had the role to speak about the Magenta case in order to show to the Americans that the UFO problem was not an American problem, but was a global problem, with a timeless problem. You understand? And I did this, and it was very, very cooperative in this, of course.
Was there a presence by the Vatican at the event?
No.
Was the subject of religion with people like Pasulka taking...
No, was considered in a positive way, of course. Pasulka was not present directly. It was
remote.
By remote, exactly. But her speech was very, very interesting and was...
respect to what the work that for many decades you laid out. I mean, I remember myself when I saw you in Roviano discussing the Blessed Virgin Mary. I mean, that was
many years ago.
Many years ago. I actually have a photo of it. But what did she add to the discussion?
No, Diana Pasulka, for instance, showed the fact that, for instance, today we have in the east of Europe, and not only, he showed the phenomena occurred in 1978 in Zaytun in Egypt, no? And this phenomena was completely verified by the Coptic church, and they said, okay, everything is authentic. So this is important because she not only spoke about the subject, she showed photographs and even films of that phenomena. You understand?
Very interesting. And of course, guys, we have discussed it here during the show. I think it was 68 now, not 78. I think Roberto got slightly wrong there. But in any case, he was definitely a pioneer, because after Jacques Vallée has just briefly discussed this subject in 1968, because I think his book was published in 1968, then it was many decades later, in 1990, that the book, instead of Corrado Malanga and Roberto Pinotti, on the Blessed Virgin's apparition came out. And that was definitely a relevant and important book. Let me show you the cover. I fenomeni BVM, the Marian manifestations in a new light. So another thing which I wanted to show you is the books that you can actually photograph, of course, your own copy of the Vatican's Top Secret Annual Agenda, and you can send it in at Ordo Illuminatorum Universalis at gmail.com, which is our email. Yes, you have a question, Christy, please.
So basically all those apparitions are UFOs?
Well, it seems like a good part of them have definitely links with what is now known as the UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon. There is always been, in fact, some paranormal activities that are, of course, linked to whatever the Catholic Church deems holy. Think about also the activities of the saints, but also their sanctuaries, where regularly you have these miracles and these events.
Are the miracles authentic?
The miracles then are verified, and they have to be authentic. You know, like in the case of what happened there in Egypt, they verified that there was somebody who was really crippled and then suddenly starts walking. I mean,
so the aliens can do that to help.
So what Pasulka is saying, actually, but also Pinotti, is that it seems like these aliens adapt to our religious frame of mind, and then they can in some way benefit. They mimic it, and then they can benefit us. We are talking, of course, about angelic beings rather than demonic, because otherwise they would not be interested in helping us. But definitely, it's very interesting to see also Pinotti talking about Pasulka and, of course, Gary Nolan, who have been discussing also their own direct experiences with the UAP crash sites and consciousness.
Seems to be an access point for what we would call non-human intelligence, whatever that is. Religions have their own protocols for dealing with this type of contact.
It's more measurable than I thought it would be, because we can put together sensor systems that can see things. But it's harder figuring out what the data actually means. Perhaps the nature of the phenomenon is faith, that, you know, at a certain point, how much do you need to be shown before you can believe what you see? I went white, because I had samples in there, and I was sure that they were going to open the thing up, find this stuff, and drag me off to the penitentiary somewhere.
I was shocked that Gary and Tyler believed it because they're so credible and, amazingly intelligent. It was beginning to dawn on me that it was real.
Sorry, you had a phone call from U.S. Gov. Should I answer it?
Sure, online. Yeah, let's hear
it. Ooh.
That's weird.
That's weird. Everybody's always, these things are very much monitored. In any case, I want to close today's show with the alleged latest message from Medjugorje given on June 22.
Beautiful believers. Today we reflect on the Medjugorje message reported on June 20th, 2026 with Maria. Here are the message. My beloved child, today I come to you with a mother's love, a love that never grows tired and never abandons you. I see your struggles, your hidden tears, your unanswered questions, and the burdens you carry in silence. Do not think that heaven is distant from you. Every prayer you whisper, every sigh of your heart, and every act of faith is seen by my Son. Many of you are living in a time of distraction and uncertainty. The world offers countless voices, yet few lead to peace. I call you, dear children, to return to the silence of prayer. In silence, you will hear the gentle voice of God. In silence, your wounds can begin to heal. In silence, faith becomes stronger than fear. My children, do not allow discouragement to take root in your hearts. Some of you have prayed for years and have not yet seen the answers you desire. Some have lost hope because circumstances seem impossible. Yet I tell you, God's timing is perfect. What appears delayed is not forgotten. Trust in the divine plan, even when you cannot understand it. I invite families to pray together again. Gather in love and place God at the center of your homes. Where prayer lives, division cannot remain for long. Where forgiveness is practiced, peace begins to flourish. Satan seeks to weaken families through pride, anger, and selfishness, but prayer is a shield that protects the soul. Dear children, many hearts today are hungry for love, yet they search for it in places that leave them empty. True love comes from God. Open your hearts to His mercy. Do not be afraid to surrender your worries.
Did you enjoy today's show? If you did, please purchase my new book. What's up?
That's not my puppet.
Okay. The Vatican Top Secret Alien Agenda, Hidden Encounters, Forbidden Rituals, and Jesuit Astronomers in the Age of UFO Disclosure!
Dance to this.
No, you have to dance.
I need some other kind of.
Guys.
I think dance better to the beginning, not the end.
Okay. Guys, please share this video, put like and subscribe to our channel. We need more subscribers. We need more viewers to make this transmission relevant. So, I mean, this book is relevant, guys.
Yeah.
It got to #1 in the UFO section of Amazon.
Oh.
Wow. See you next week.
That's what we need to do. It's safe for potential whistleblowers to come forward. That's what it's going to take. But that is what it, I think, is the next giant step. And fortunately, I see a panel